Gaming Geek here with a video on how to create colored rings for your miniatures that are on your team, and they have to be interchangeable. So one of the games that I've been playing recently is Riot Quest, and one of the issues that I have is trying to easily identify which one of the miniatures on the board are part of your team, especially since I have two starter boxes, and so there are repeats of multiple figures. So for example, Sir Dreyfus, I have two Sir Dreyfuses, right? And true, I colored them differently so that you can say, well, my Sir Dreyfus is a red and black one, whereas my Sir Dreyfus is the blue one. But when you look at this table, you really can't tell who's on which team. And then when you add more than just two players, we played a 4-player game, it's really hard to tell who's on whose team and keeping track of all of that. So I wanted to come up with a solution of being able to easily identify which one of the miniatures are on whose team. A lot of CMON games do have these colored plastic rings, and this is from a game Arcadia Quest where you recruit 4 heroes to be on your team, and then you snap on these colored rings on their bases. But what I found is the downfall for those colored rings is that after you spend all this time painting up your bases, it scrapes off the paint when you remove those colored rings. And so I wanted to come up with a solution where it doesn't scrape up the rings. I actually went on Thingiverse to try to find if someone had already created colored rings that you would be able to attach, and surprisingly there really aren't any. So I had to figure out my own way of adapting some of the things that are on Thingiverse, and this is the solution that I came up with. Here are colored rings with washers on them, and I magnetized these bases so that they snap right into place like this. And so you pick out your team members, and because at least the models so far have two sizes, the larger size, Sir Dreyfus is one of them, right? You can snap him in as well as the smaller size models. And as you can tell, because these guys have magnets on the bottom, they stay on pretty well. They don't come off. But they're not permanent, and so you're not scraping up your base whenever you're detaching them. So this is a really good solution, and let me show you the difference between this board after I put on the team rings. So look at how much easier it is to tell which miniature is part of which faction in this 4-player game. And so I think this is a pretty good solution and relatively easy. So the rest of this tutorial I'm going to show you how to attach these little magnets at the bottom of these bases, and then how to create these rings using one of the files on Thingiverse and shrinking it or enlarging it based on the size of the figure, and then gluing on these metal washers. I looked at possible solutions to be able to identify which of my models are on my team, and one of the options that I saw online was something called squad marks, and these are plastic rings that you basically slide on to your miniature. The only downfall to that was that these are 25 millimeter, as you see here, and that doesn't quite fit the bases for the Privateer Press models. So also I noticed that you do scrape some of the paint off when you're sliding these on and off. So even though this looked like a cool idea, it wasn't going to work for me. Next, I went over to Alea Tools, and I knew this, I've seen this product before from playing Dungeons and Dragons, and this is a magnetized system where you can stack on these colored rings to your miniatures, primarily for effects. Right, so look at here is a sample of the different effects that's placed on your character. And I thought, oh, I could just use one of them so that I could identify them to be on my team. But again, I ran into some of the same problems with this one, where I was limited by both 1-inch and 2-inch sizes. And so, and the cost itself, although relatively cheap, you have to magnetize each one of the miniatures with these metal stickers on the bottom of them. So again, I thought I could come with a faster and cheaper solution. And so that's where I went into looking for a 3D print solution. Okay, so the first thing you got to do is to go to Thingiverse and click on the link I have in the descriptions below to basically get to this file, the Bokeh discs, and download all of the files. So after you download the files, go ahead and open up your slicer. I'm using the Prusa slicer, and go ahead and import in whichever of the two that you want. I like the star, but you can get the heart if you want. Just go ahead and bring that in. And here's the normal size. So let's go ahead and copy that. Create another copy because we're going to need one for the larger size disk as well as the smaller size disk. Obviously, you're going to want to size these for whatever size the base of your mini is, and these are instructions for resizing it specifically for privateer press miniatures and their bases. So let's go ahead and first do the smaller one, and what we want to do is resize here, and I go ahead for the smaller base, resize it to 36, and it should keep it all to scale. So since this is all locked together, that's the size you want, and I don't actually make any other adjustments. Let's go ahead and take the larger of the two, and this time we want to scale this to 47 millimeters. Now what I also noticed was that when I printed it out at this size, it just felt too bulky and tall, and so I go ahead and scale down and make it shorter by just doing the Z factor. And so at least in Prusa Slicer, you have to click on this to unlock it so that you're only changing the Z size. And what I do is I put that at 50% height, and it will only shrink down the height. So these are the numbers that you should be able to do. Your slicer might have different settings, but overall you're trying to approximate these numbers here. So once you get that, I basically copy and paste so that I have 4 of each of these, and just arrange them on your printer so that they're printing efficiently, and then do the same for this, where I have 4 of these guys printing. So arrange it however way you want. But if you print out these, you'll have 4 large and 4 small, and change up the colors in order to get the different colors. And I came up with 4 different teams. Obviously, you can print out as many of these as you want, but this is the size that I think works perfectly for Riot Quest. All right, so what you want to do is go to your local hardware store to pick up some washers, and I went to Lowe's, and these are the prices that I got. I grabbed a box of these 1/8 inch by 1 inch fender washers because it gives you a lot of surface area, and I got 30 of them for about $7. Next, in the same section, I picked up some of these, which I bought individually. These are 3/8 by 1.5 inch washers, and these will fit into the larger bases, and I grabbed 16 of these, 4 for each color, and they were 23 cents, but basically a quarter a piece. So the way I magnetize my miniatures is I take some green stuff, and you basically cut off a piece and mix it up, and lo and behold, it turns green. And you just peel off just a little bit. You don't need that much. I usually roll it into this little snake so that I can take off a couple of pieces, and you just roll a little piece like that. And for these bigger models, I tend to use 2 of them. So I'll stick one here, and stick one here. The reason why I don't go closer to the edge is I don't want the miniatures to attract each other when they're sitting on the board close to each other. And then I grab my magnets, and the magnets that I got online are these 3 by 2 millimeter magnets. And what you do is just, once you put the green stuff in there, is you just push it in a little bit and peel it off like that. Push it in and then peel off. And then against your table or a flat surface, you want to press down so that it flattens out and pushes the magnets in. So basically, that's how that works. And then you need them to dry for about 24 hours. And then they pretty much stick on here. Now these metal ones will move a little bit because they're heavier. Here's a lighter one. Yeah. Now the plastic ones, the reason why I get such small ones is your plastic miniatures, you don't want the really big magnets because they're so strong that you're not able to pull them off of the metal, or you might break them or rip them off. Also, you don't want them being attracted to each other when they're standing right next to each other on the battlefield. So I think these are good sizes. Also, after I'm done, I usually Sharpie the top part of the stack because you don't want these to attract each other when they go up against them. So they're repelling each other right now because the poles are rejecting each other. So it's a small thing. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter that much if you get the poles mixed up, but I just like being consistent that way. Alright, so once you print out all of these, I'm just going to use my super glue and super glue all of the washers into the bases. And it's relatively easy, it's not hard at all. Just grab one of these, and that's all I use. I don't need to use a whole lot. And then I just center it and just drop it in there, and just press it in for a couple of seconds, and then set it aside to dry completely. And then do the same thing with the smaller ones as well. Just super glue and drop in there, making sure that you don't get super glue on your fingers by going through the star in the center. And so pretty much after it dries, you can stick these guys right in here, no problem, and they won't come off. So that's pretty much how you make these rings for your team faction, so that you know which miniature is a part of your own team. Even though I know you in Riot Quest you can have up to 10 figures on your team, you're never going to have more than 4 on the field at a time, and so these are plenty of rings. You can just swap them out if you need to. So thanks again for checking out my video, and hopefully this helped you a lot. If you guys do know of someone who has created these rings specifically for miniatures and I just missed it or couldn't find it in my search, please make a comment below. Provide a link so that others can find that. Otherwise, go ahead and use this method, and happy gaming to all of you.